This is Host Jockeys Unite, the only episodic podcast that strives to not only educate and entertain those in emergency services, but to give an inside peek inside the fire and EMS services to the general public. We are here to leave a legacy for future generations. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Edwards and Jay Gallagher. Hello and welcome back to Host Jockeys Unite. I'm your host, Chris Edwards, and this is my co-host, Jay Gallagher.
Everybody.
Along with today's special guest, Will Adams.
Hello.
In today's episode, we will discuss EMS fire everyday carry. What do we as fire and EMS personnel carry on us every shift? We will also give you some handy tips that you can use in your EMS or fire career. But before we jump in, let's learn a little bit about our hosts. And as I mentioned before, my name is Chris. I'm one of the hosts of the show. And I began my career in the fire service as a volunteer about 7 years ago. After that, I became a paid firefighter for about a year, and I'm now a full-time EMT. Jay, tell us a little bit about your career in the fire service.
Well, I guess I'm the old fart of the bunch. I started as a fire explorer in 1986. In 1989, I became a full firefighter, and I've served as driver operator, right on up to captain to, basic grunt firefighter. Also, about 1990, became a EMT. About 94, I got my paramedic, and I retired in 2015.
And Will, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Got my EMT in 2013. About 2 years ago, went and got my paramedic. I've been riding as a paid EMS provider for about 5 years now. I did some volunteer work before that, and for the past 4 years, I've also been in a fire department as a volunteer firefighter, driver, operator.
Hey folks, now is the part of the show that we call Ask the Firefighter. This is where you get to email us or send us a question that you would like answered by us firefighters / medical providers. Today's question comes to us via Facebook, submitted by Stephen Lovett. What do you consider the 3 biggest changes in the course of your time on the job, both positive and negative? Chris?
Well, Stephen, in my observation over the past 6 or 7 years, I've noticed, number one, a shift in attitudes towards safety. I've noticed that the department seems to be getting more proactive in the safety of their firefighters, especially where firefighter cancer is concerned. Departments seem to be taking job-related cancer more and more seriously. With the introduction of the clean cab concept, required decontamination before leaving the scene, etc., a culture of safety is becoming more of the norm. Second, modern technology is another change that I've seen. This is both a positive as well as a negative change. The latest SCBAs are super comfortable to wear, causing less strain on the back, which reduces fatigue and back injury. They're also very easy to hot swap the cylinders. New packs have Bluetooth links to the incident commander, which allows real-time tracking of a firefighter's position, and is a great tool for accountability. GPS and smartphone dispatch is another modern technology. It is so easy to get a dispatch, push a button and pop up the map with turn-by-turn routing, as well as displaying CAD notes and other pertinent information. However, GPS is not perfect. I've been dispatched to calls in the past, and the GPS took me to the wrong address, slowing down the response time. One negative trend that I've seen is especially prevalent in volunteer departments, especially rural volunteer departments. This trend is the lack of physical fitness and morbid obesity in the ranks. A lot of departments don't seem to require any kind of agility or stamina testing or even a medical screen for new members. I do realize that a lot of departments are struggling with recruiting and retention of new members, but with cardiac arrest being the #1 killer of firefighters nationwide, this should be a no-brainer. Also, in the last several years, more and more fire departments are requiring that their members and staff members to obtain an EMT certification at the minimum, and are becoming more prevalent with running medical calls. To me, this is a positive change. EMS is already stretched very thin a lot of times, and firefighter departments are usually quicker to arrive on scene than EMS, giving the patient a better chance of survival due to quicker stabilization and transport to higher level of care. In the cardiac arrest scenario, for example, it is great to have fire department on staff on scene to help rotate chest compressions, grab supplies, ventilate a patient, and more. Even though this is a good thing, there are still not fire departments out there that will fight tooth and nail not to run medical calls. Finally, as another negative change, I see a lot of young firefighters coming into the service with an almost godlike attitude. There is no sense of humility anymore. These guys just started in the field, but yet they already know it all. They've seen it all, and no one knows better than they do and can tell them otherwise. I also see a certain lack of disrespect for those that have been around for a while and for the chain of command. Jay, how about you? What changes have you seen over the course of your career?
Well, as you know, I've been in the business, so to speak, for a long time. And some of the biggest changes I've seen is we went from manual pump panels to computerized with no manual throttle backup in case something happens to said computer. Another thing is from gasoline powered to diesel powered now to electric powered, which I won't even get on my soapbox on that one. I just hate to be the one that's dispatching to have to tell the person whose house burning down, I'm sorry, sir, we can't respond right now. We're charging our fire truck. Turnout gear is another thing that's changed. It used to be cotton duck, which was lightweight, and it actually breathes to an extent. Now it's Nomex. Helmets have Kevlar linings in them also. It's become bulkier, but yet it's still lightweight enough that you could work comfortably. And so some of the suppression techniques, I don't know if you would call it coming full circle on this, or if it's just a change back and forth. Call it however you see it. It used to be straight bore nozzles. Then we went to the adjustable tip nozzles. Now it's back to the straight bore for interior attack. I could go on, but it would take up the whole showtime.
So there you have it, Stephen. We would like to thank you for your submission to the show. And if you have any questions about the fire service or EMS service that you'd like to be answered on the show, or would like to learn how to become a volunteer firefighter, please email us at firefighter274@outlook.com. If you have spent any amount of time on a fire scene or a medical call, you have seen him. Rescue Randy. Every department or service has at least one. But who is Rescue Randy? Rescue Randy is not so much of a who, but more of a mindset of a first responder. He is the guy in the department that tries to carry an entire fire truck on his belt and is overly eager to jump headfirst into any situation without analyzing the scene beforehand. This is the firefighter or EMT that is usually a member of 2 or more departments or services, carries a radio and pager for each department that he is actually a member of 24/7, 365. But how much equipment is actually necessary to carry on your person to get the job done safely and efficiently? Today we're going to answer that question, as well as discuss what the 3 of us personally prefer to carry. We're going to empty our pockets out for you, the listener, and give a description of what we carry, what these items are used for, and why we carry them.
So, just what is an appropriate amount of equipment to carry on a daily basis? The answer to this question is really twofold. The first determining factor is what role you are fulfilling. Are you an EMT? Are you a paramedic? Are you a firefighter? A firefighter would obviously need to carry more equipment and PPE than an EMS provider due to the fact that they work in IDLH environments and need more items and tools in their bunker gear than EMS needs in their pockets or on their belts. The secondary consideration to answer this question is simply personal preference. Every person is different and have different personal opinions on this subject. So, what's the basic equipment that should be carried by EMS professionals and what are their functions? Well, first and foremost, PPE should be your top consideration. for EMS. Gloves and masks is the current standard, especially in the world of COVID-19. Depending on the particular situation, more PPE may be required, such as safety glasses or face shield and gown. Gloves, for example, latex or nitrile, disposable exam gloves should be worn for every patient contact. These are designed to prevent exposure to bloodborne pathogens by acting as a barrier between the blood and other bodily fluids and open cuts in your skin. Now you have your mask, surgical or N95, designed to protect the wearer's respiratory tract from certain airborne pathogens and the mucous membranes from the nose and bloodborne pathogens. Now you have your safety glasses and face shields, designed to protect the wearer's mucous membranes of the eyes from the bloodborne pathogens and other airborne droplets. Secondary use of the face shield is to protect the mucous membranes of the mouth and nose from bloodborne pathogens and aerosolized pathogens. Then you have your gowns, designed to protect the wearer's clothes primarily from blood and other bodily fluids, used mostly for obstetrical type of call. Then you have your pencil and pen and notepad to write down patient information, their vitals, any notes that you may need to remember later on. A watch with a second hand. Besides telling the time, useful for obtaining pulses, respirations, and other vitals. Don't always rely on your pulse ox for a pulse. It's always good to double check. Cell phone. Useful for calling medical control, looking up information on the internet if needed. Also useful if you need a timer. Your two-way radio, required to keep in touch with dispatch, requesting additional resources, calling patient reports into the hospital, contacting medical control, etc. And your stethoscope, to listen to heart and lung sounds, useful when taking a manual blood pressure. And now, what basic equipment should be carried by firefighters and what are their functions? PPE for a firefighter is going to differ based on the type of call that they're responding to. For a structure fire, a full set of turnout gear, including bunker coat, bunker pants, flash hood, helmet, gloves, boots, SCBA, and mask are required. For other incidents such as wildland fires, a lighter ensemble of PPE is recommended. Vehicle accident PPE depends on your specific assignment, usually a variation of the structural firefighting ensemble. You have your two-way radio, required to keep in touch with dispatch, requesting additional resources, contacting the command, etc. Cell phone, useful for looking up information on the internet, such as hazmat information, getting additional resources, incident dispatch. Also useful if you need a timer. Your watch, useful for keeping time. Pencil or pen and notepad to write down notes that you may need to remember later on. Make friction loss calculations and other pump-related information. Pocket knife or multi-tool. Don't leave home without it. Useful in a multitude of situations, and it could save your life. Hand tools for a structure fire. Axe or married set or irons, Halligan bar, New York hook, or the like. Useful for cleaning debris, keeping in contact with your partner, and feeling around in a search operation, and many, many other uses. Never get off the truck without a tool in your hands. Small hand tools, wire cutters, pliers, screwdrivers, etc. Useful if you become entangled, need to remove screws, and many other uses. Lengths of nylon webbing, super useful on the fire ground. It can be used to make a hasty harness in a pinch, used for search and rescue, and keep in contact with your partner. Used to tie and hold tools, drag victims, etc. Door wedges, used to prop doors open to keep yourself from being trapped inside of a room. Now, let's discuss a few things, guys. Will, what is your personal EMS EDC?
Well, my personal EMS EDC, it varies depending on the situation I have, because with the way everything's going now, my EDC kind of changed a little bit to where I keep a plate carrier with me at work, and I actually have a rig set up with that. And generally, the only thing that my plate carrier adds is that I keep some like trauma pads, bandages, gauze, small stuff like that, with an addition of an additional multi-tool that I carry. I have the Leatherman Skeletal. So it's got needle nose pliers, regular pliers, it's got some wire cutters, it's got a carabiner on it, it's got a bit driver on there. It's also got a glass breaker, and it's got some screwdrivers, just a Phillips head and a flathead. And it's also got a serrated knife on it. So I mean that's pretty much the only thing I really carry on top of my on my plate carrier. I do have a tourniquet on there. I do have an extra pair of trauma shears, but that's a duplicate item of what I'm already carrying. My personal stuff, when I'm just just everyday run of the mill calls, it's obviously I keep a pen on me because everyone needs a pen to write stuff down with. I don't necessarily worry so much about a notepad because I've always got a monitor that has paper in it, so I can get paper relatively quickly. I also carry Sharpies because when you're dealing with certain things, Sharpies are nice to have. Like if someone says got a spider bite, you can circle the bite so you can see if anything, the wound is getting bigger or redness around it, anything in those situations. I carry 2 pairs of trauma shears on me. I carry just a regular pair of trauma shears. If I lose, I'm not going to be upset if I lose them. But I also carry Raptors with me as well, the Leatherman Raptors. They're collapsible, so they sit on my belt in the little sheath they come in. But the nice thing about the Raptors is that it's got a little ruler on it, so I can measure anything I might need to up to 5 centimeters. It's got a ring cutter on there. It's got an oxygen wrench, seatbelt cutter, small stuff like that. It's also got a glass breaker on there as well. I also, on top of my Leatherman Raptors, I carry just a regular pocket knife. It varies from time to time. Right now, the one I'm carrying is the SOG Flare, and I like it because it's lockable. So unless I mess up somehow, I won't accidentally open it in my pocket. I also carry, I carry a pen light because being able to assess people, having a pen light's a great thing. I also carry a shove knife, and some people are gonna be like, "Why do you need a shove knife working in EMS?" I carry my shove knife because there's been situations where people have kind of locked themselves in rooms, or they've fallen, they can't get up, and sometimes it's easy if they have that locked door, I can get the shove knife in there and bypass that lock in the situation that I may need to. One thing that I absolutely refuse to give up on top of my regular uniform, is a regular ball cap and a pair of sunglasses. Because sunglasses are my safety glasses, and being able to have that to shield myself from the sun and be able to assess my patient a little bit better outside kind of helps, as well as having the ball cap to keep the sun out of my eyes. That being said, there's my brain part. The other things that I carry is on my badge I keep for work. We have to carry a badge. It's our ID and everything like that. I also carry little cheat sheets because, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning you've been up all day, and it's nice to be able to have those little cheat sheets to be able to recognize cardiac rhythms to make sure you're not missing something that you should be. The one thing that I do like that Jay brought up was the fact that everyone needs to carry a 2-way radio. We have to carry one at work. They do status checks on us. But the advantage that I feel that I have with my radio is I carry it in a strap, and being able to carry it in a strap, not only do I have the ability to put stuff on that strap, but I also carry another pair of gloves in that strap sometimes. Most time it falls out, but it's nice to know that if I need it, I have it most of the time as well. That's really about all that I really carry. I do carry a pager, but now that we're in the process from switching to the VHF stuff to the 800 megahertz stuff, I have it more just to listen to what communications is trying to get out to us more than worrying about getting information to pass on to everybody else, because it's a pager. I can't talk back on it. The other thing too is a stethoscope. The ones that we are provided with at work are like $10-15. They're not the greatest. For the longest time, I was carrying a Littman Classic 3, and here recently, I was upgraded from the Classic 3 to a Cardiology 4 with the new Core Digital Echo attachment. So it amplifies things up to like 40 times of what the peak frequency is. It also gives noise cancellation to help get rid of some background sounds that are going on around, and it's great. I absolutely love that new stethoscope because I can hear so much better, especially going down the road, lights and sirens and everything else.
Does it have the pediatric sounder also on the flip side?
It's got it on both sides. Yeah, the bell's got the two different sides on it. I have learned that when I'm not using the amplified one, that a lot of times going down the road, I'll still flip over to the smaller side because the bell it brings in sound a little bit better than the bigger side does.
Gotcha.
But I think I don't think there's anything else that I really carry. I mean, this day and age, everyone's attached to their phone. I'm not worried about carrying a lot of extra PPE because it's all provided by work. So if I need gowns, they're on the truck. Safety glasses. I have my sunglasses. Face shields are provided on the truck. We always carry surgical mask and N95. The N95s that we have at work we're fit tested for, so they should have on the truck what we need. What we've actually passed with our fit test. Gloves, we always carry nitrile gloves on the truck. We don't carry latex anymore because so many people now have latex allergies, and it's easier to not have to worry about that process or that problem.
Yeah, I know the EMS Con Ed coordinator for Alamance County was like deathly allergic to latex. And when I say deathly allergic, I mean she would go into respiratory distress in no time, and it was really bad. Damn it! Shut them up. But sorry about that, y'all. I have an overeager puppy here. But yeah, she would go into respiratory distress in no time, and her whole entire body would swell up. I mean, it was bad.
Oh yeah, she was the EMS coordinator when I got my EMT, and I remember her coming into class from day one. She said, "If you bring a box of latex gloves in this class, you will fail. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it."
Yeah. She unfortunately has passed away though. She was a really good person. So, but anyway, moving on. Chris, how about you?
Well, my personal EMS everyday carry is very minimalistic compared to some. I always carry a pocket knife, because I never know when I might need to cut some kind of material. I always have my trauma shears, just like Will. I use the Raptor rescue shears, and the thing I like about them is the blades are very, very durable blades, so they cut pretty much anything. I always personally carry an extra set of gloves in my pocket, and I carry an extra surgical mask in my pocket. as well. I'm kind of old school. I carry a pen and a notepad. And like Will said, I carry a Sharpie because Sharpie is actually right on gloves actually very well. I carry a pen light to check people reactivity or for situations where I just need light. I also at nighttime I'll carry a small flashlight as well, just to have extra light if I need it to prevent trips and falls, look at gauges and whatnot. Um, my eyeglasses, that's kind of a given. I have to have them to see. As far as the stethoscope go, I don't carry a personal stethoscope while on duty. I just can't personally justify the cost of a stethoscope when there are at least 4 different ones on the ambulances at all times. I'd like to have one, but it's just not in my budget right now. So, Will, what is your personal EDC for fire department?
Well, based on the stuff that you guys have already discussed previously, I still carry a small little pocket organizer. It's got some medical stuff. My fire department is everyone's kind of falls into their particular places, so I carry my stuff to be more. I know that when it comes down to it on a call, if there's something that medical that needs to happen, they're gonna be looking at me because I work full time as a paramedic, so it makes sense. They're gonna be like, "Will, this is you. We'll help you. You tell me what you need, but we're gonna hand this off to you." So I still carry some small hand tools. I carry a pair of wire cutters, a pair of channel locks or ply or something like that. A Phillips head and a flathead screwdriver in my pocket. Plus, the department provided everybody with 50 feet of rope and a couple carabiners to have as bailout rope or search and rescue rope. But I always keep a pair of gloves, N95, and now that I've upgraded my stethoscope for my everyday carry at work, I'm getting ready to upgrade. The one that I want to carry with me is going to be my old my classic 3 stethoscope to go in there too. I do have some wedges in there. I've got a pair of gloves that I use for more rescue situations. I got a pair of mechanics high vis gloves. Because doing some things I don't necessarily need structural firefighting gloves. The radio is, I don't carry the one that I carry at work. I don't carry mine on a strap when I'm at the fire department. I just throw it in my turnout coat because we have the lapel mics on there, so I can throw it in my turnout coat, throw the lapel mic out where I need it to be, and it's right there within arm's reach if I need it. Generally, hand tools for me are, it's always nice to be able to have an axe or a married set, Halligan bar, stuff like that. But that stuff's all on our trucks. We don't have to worry about carrying that stuff for ourselves to the truck because everything's there. So I generally grab something off there. My general preference when I'm getting off the truck, it just depends on where I'm riding at in the truck. If I'm riding in the officer's seat because someone else got to the truck before me, most of our trucks have a 3-foot Halligan bar right there on the officer's door. If I'm riding in the back, generally when I get out, I'm going to grab a New York hook and a trash hook just because they're right there, convenient as I get out the truck. Other than that, we really don't carry, I personally don't carry a lot of extra stuff in my turnout gear. I do have a door wedge in there. On my helmet, I've got some golf tees. And I've had people ask me, why do I carry golf tees on my helmet? And the one thing that makes sense to me, I heard it from somebody else. And I think Jay was there when I kind of picked it up then. That was before I even got into the fire service. But just remembering it was carrying golf tees on my helmet as a means of having something to slow down a leak or stop a leak on a wreck.
That's actually a good idea. I never even thought of that. To be honest with you,
you'd be surprised what you learn from a New York City fireman. But I mean, that's anybody. I mean, it doesn't have to just be a New York City fireman. It's, you pick up small things along the way. You're like, that sounds like a really good idea, and that was one of those things where I learned it from somebody who's been in it a lot longer than I have, and I hope I never have to use it in this situation, but if I do, I have the stuff available to me. So, I mean, I still carry my knife with me. I mean, obviously, that's something I carry with me every day anyways. So, it's going to take me a little bit longer to get to it, but I do have a knife that I can get to. But generally, I got wire cutters to, if I get in a situation where I have to crawl through wires, something like that, I can cut through them. They're not the best wire cutters. I need to probably look at upgrading that stuff. But generally, I don't get myself in those situations as often, and that's probably the reason why I haven't upgraded it yet, because I haven't been forced into a situation where I felt like I've needed to upgrade.
So, Jay, when you were active, what was your personal firefighter EDC?
Well, seeing as how we had fed the horses when I was back in the fire department, I had to carry a pocket full of hay. No, all jokes aside, it's a whole lot different nowadays with you younger guys versus what it was when I was active. As far as EMS EDC, all I carried was shears, a pen light, and gloves. And that was on, I call it the emergency holster, because, you see Johnny and Roy wearing them on emergency. And that's basically all I carried as far as EMS, because we carried the trauma bags, the drug bags, and all like that on the truck. Now, as far as the fire department side, when I first started, we didn't have the condominium pockets, as I call them, on our turnout gear. We just had one pocket, and the pockets on our coat, and I carried pliers, wire cutters, and a pocket knife. I had a rubber strap. It was like an inner tube that went around my helmet that I carried, a couple of door chalks, golf tees, and like that. And then when we upgraded our gear and we got the bunker pants with the bigger pockets, I carried, in addition to that, I carried, we were only required to carry 6 foot of rope with a couple of carabiners on it. But we had that. And don't laugh at me, but I had a can of dip in my pocket. So after the fire, I could come out and put a dip in. But, and for all firefighters who do dip, make absolutely sure you spit your dip out before you put your mask on. Because that mask will only hold so much. But, it's kind of the old saying, never eat more than what your SCBA mask can hold when you throw up. It's kind of the same way with dip. But anyway, but yeah, everything's changed since I was on the department. I'm sitting here kind of in awe listening to what you guys carry and thinking about what I used to carry. And, even back then, some of the old timers, so you carrying too much. Well, not really. And so that's about it for me. But, like I said, you guys carry a whole lot more than what I did. So, Chris, how about you?
So, my EDC for the fire department is quite similar to the EMS side. Things like pen and paper, flashlight, pocket knife, things like that. But I also carry a length of webbing. I was told early on carry webbing because it just has way too many uses to not use it. So I always carry probably about a 25-foot length of webbing, 25, 50 foot, just depending on what I have of nylon webbing. Wire cutters, I use them in my turnout gear to free myself or my partner or victim from wire entanglement. Hand tools like screwdrivers and pliers. on the flip side of what Will was saying, I actually carry a couple, 3 golf balls in my pocket. And what I use them for is I help use them if I get disoriented. So if I can't tell the direction I'm at, I will throw a ball to help. Like I'll throw it to help find a wall. I can hear where it bounces off a wall, and that way I know that the wall's to my left or to my right. And then of course trauma shears. I carry that on my duty uniform. Usually on my duty uniform at the fire department. Not so much on my turnout gear. But so that's pretty much what my EDC is. So
now, when you throw the said golf ball to find the wall, do you yell 4 before you throw it?
no, I yell 5.
Oh, okay.
So, Jay, did you have any other questions in this section? Didn't you say you had something about?
Yeah. Actually, I got a question for both of you. Whoever wants to answer first, feel free. In today's world with COVID, do y'all ever? And I know y'all come in contact with COVID patients. I mean, it's a given. Do you ever worry about you yourself contracting COVID from the patients you work on? How much? Because I know both of you have families and both of you have kids, and I know it's got to weigh somewhat on your minds.
I personally don't worry about it too much. Our department, Will and I, if you don't know, both work for the same company, and we're required by said company to have COVID vaccination, at least the initial one. So I feel like I've got a good immunity to it. I had it 2 years ago at Christmas time, and it really wasn't even as bad as the flu for me. So I don't worry about it too much. If dispatch says that it's, COVID positive, yeah, I'll wear an N95 mask. But if I don't know, I don't worry about it. I'm sure there's probably 300 people that I've come in contact with since I've started working here that are COVID positive, and I never even knew it. Will, what's your opinion on it?
I mean, to me, I'm not so much worried about contracting the virus. I know everybody has to build up some sort of immunity to things. Some people have a natural immunity better than others do. It took me almost to the end of when they finally decided that COVID was no longer going to be a thing before I finally contracted it, like actually tested positive for it. And even in that situation, I didn't feel like really bad compared to what other people have experienced. And I wasn't necessarily worried about it because my ex-girlfriend, she got it right there at the beginning of it. And we were both out of work for 2 weeks because we were living together. So because she's out of work, now I'm out of work.
Back when everybody was scared of it.
Right. And the entire time, I hadn't changed any of my routine, wasn't doing anything different. She was in bed all day. I was at home all day. Didn't wear a mask at home. Never once contracted any symptoms whatsoever from it. So, I mean, now it's, at work, it's if they say, oh, this patient has a possibility of being an exposure risk, then, I might be a little bit more apt to put on a mask. Because honestly, now everyone's gotten so tired of wearing masks and all the other extra stuff that they've had to wear for so long. People now, they just generally don't care. Especially now with it not being as big of an issue. We're still technically required to do it. But I know that there's a lot of people that don't do it because everyone's tired of doing it. The patients aren't showing any symptoms, which we all know. Just because you're not showing symptoms doesn't mean that's not going to happen. But a lot of us are at the point now where it's, if we catch it, we catch it. If we don't, we don't. I've been around people that have been COVID positive, that they've known tested positive right in the middle of the communication phase of it. And there's been times where I've been in situations no mask, no gloves, no face shields, none of that stuff, and walked out of there with absolutely no symptoms, never contracted any sort of exposure from it whatsoever.
I mean, sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. If somebody's life is at risk, you have to just like deal with it. And I've been guilty of not wearing mask or gloves before, but it was a situation where I had to grab something off the truck and go.
Right.
But I remember back when COVID first was a thing, when it first came out, and all EMS crews were dressed up like surgical crews, with the exception of wearing pappers. They had the whole gown, shield, gloves, and foot covers, and all the other stuff that they wear in the operating theater that we shouldn't have to wear as an EMS provider.
It was absolutely ridiculous the amount of PPE that we had to wear because, when it first came out, the way that the policy was written, and, the people who are making these policies have a lot more medical training than probably the three of us put together. But, they wanted us to wear these gowns, wear goggles with, if you couldn't wear goggles, they wanted you to wear a face shield. You had to wear a surgical mask or an N95, depending on what you were doing for that patient, gloves. And the thing that made it so bad wasn't that we had to wear all this PPE, but because we were getting the stuff donated by multiple government agencies and stuff like that, it was always the cheapest quality stuff.
Right.
So the gowns that we had, while they did their jobs by keeping the stuff off of us, somewhat, they were made of, it was basically wearing a big trash bag, and it didn't breathe. So it's, it's 95 degrees outside. You're inside of an assisted living facility, and because as we get older, it's harder for us to regulate our body temperature, so it never fails. You're in this room with this gentleman who's 86 years old, and he's got his thermostat set to 90. So on top of it being 95 degrees outside, you're inside with this patient in a 90-degree room.
Wearing a sauna suit.
Wearing a trash bag, basically, and you're just sitting there. Me, I go outside, and it doesn't matter what temperature it is. If it's above 80 degrees, I walk outside, and I'm sweating like there's no tomorrow. And
are you kidding me? I've seen you wear shorts in 30-degree weather.
My point. But I mean, that's the thing is, someone like me, as soon as you walk outside 80 plus degrees and you're sweating just as soon as you get outside the door, having to wear all that stuff on top of having to wear the blood resistant pants, the heavy polo shirt that doesn't really breathe all that well, and then having to wear that plastic gown over top of it and all the other stuff. By the time you get done with that call 15, 20 minutes later, just even going to the hospital, you're still sitting there soaked in sweat. You can't cool down fast enough, because by the time you get to the hospital and you get comfortable, you're having to put all that stuff right back on to go into the hospital with this patient.
Right.
And, I get it, it's something everyone was really scared about, this virus. Everyone was scared about what was going to happen, and they wanted everybody to be protected and stuff like that. But I hated the amount of stuff that we had to wear, because it just was so poorly made, and it just got to the point where, if the hospital had something better, stuff would have been strategically transferred to an alternate location, just so that way we could have what we thought was better for us.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
go ahead.
I was going to say, on a normal day-to-day basis, when it's still pouring down rain, I just sweat like a pig when I'm wearing my outer shell of my coat for EMS just to stay dry. Our coats are 2 layers, kind of like turnout gear, where it's an outer shell is kind of like water resistant, and the inner shell is a liner to keep you warm. Well, most of us take our coats apart and just this time of year just wear the outer shell when it's raining. But even with that, it's like you still sweat after moving patients around and all the things that we have to do.
Right. Well, right in the middle of the whole show of the COVID pandemic, my wife Kathy had to have her gallbladder taken out. And like 3 days before her surgery, she had to go over to the hospital and get a COVID test. Well, they didn't let her get out of the truck. And when they come over to stick the swab up her nose, they basically had on a Class B hazmat suit.
Yeah, with the peppers and the whole 9 yards. I've seen them
Mm-hmm.
even at hospitals. If somebody's COVID positive, I've seen them still to this day wearing those things. Some people.
Yeah. But the biggest thing that we had to worry about when I was first getting in the fire department was AIDS.
Yeah, I remember.
You know, that was the big thing then. And well,
that's what really kicked off the whole training for bloodborne pathogens training was the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah, the whole PPE thing and everything. I mean, my pop, God rest his soul, used to joke around and say, I could teach you bloodborne pathogens in about 5 seconds. If it's wet, yicky, and not yours, stay away from it. It's nasty.
But Will was mentioning about the policymakers. The problem is he's right. The people that made these policies had more medical training than all three of us combined, but they're also the ones that sit in an office and they don't go out in the field and see what happens in the field every day, so they don't know how inconvenient it really is and how hard it makes your job.
Yeah, very true.
It's time for our pro tip, where we leave you with the knowledge from our experience to help you be safe and come home. With today's pro tip, we have Will Adams.
My pro tip for touching on everything that we've already discussed today with the EDC stuff is go through your EDC stuff on a regular basis. You might not have to do it every week or every month or every 6 months, but once a year, go through your stuff. If you haven't used it in a year, chances are you don't need to carry it. Easiest thing to do, because the less stuff you have to carry, the more efficient you can be on scene, and less stuff you have to be caught up on when you're trying to find something that you may need that you carry on a regular basis.
So as you can see, there's a variety of equipment that we have available to use. What we actually carry on us is really a matter of personal preference, role, and specific task. There's no one-size-fits-all list of items that must be carried. Will, what's your thoughts on or your wrap up, your conclusion?
Everyone's equipment's going to be, what they want to carry is going to be different. And sometimes people are going to ask you, why do you carry this? And you just have to be able to explain, this is why I carry it. And sometimes you're going to see stuff that someone else is carrying, and you're going to be like, that's a really good thing. I've picked it up from other people. I've picked stuff up from other people, and I'm sure other people at some point pick something up that I do. It's all, at the end of the day, make sure that you're open to changing the stuff that you carry, because it's going to be able to provide you with a better resource to be a better provider for the people you're trying to save, whether it's both medically or something that happens on a fire scene.
So Jay, do you have any thoughts on the final thoughts on the show?
Yeah, I think we can all agree that whatever you carry is, personal option. To where an officer might carry certain things, a driver operator might have something different, or the grunt firefighter in the back seat has something different. It's all a matter of personal choice and what you feel like you would use the most on the scene. So choose wisely, my friend.
Hey Jay. So EMS is treating an elderly man suffering from a heart attack at his home. The medics get him on the stretcher and load him into the back of the ambulance, when they stop to ask the man's wife a few questions. Now just start at the beginning and tell what happened. The old woman nodded and started to speak. Well, we were having sex. The EMT looked visibly surprised and shocked to hear this and stopped the woman there to warn her of the risk that it could have at their age. You really shouldn't be doing something like this at your age. Things could have gone much worse. The old woman, feeling quite ashamed, tried to defend the act. Well, we thought we were safe by sticking to the rule. Listen for the church bells. And it was go in on the in on the ding and out on the dong. The medic looked obviously confused. That doesn't sound too strenuous. Is there anything else that could have caused this? The old woman stopped for a moment and started to get flustered. He would have been fine if it wasn't for the damn ice cream truck.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oy vey.
So, tune into our next show where we will discuss severe weather preparation in both the civilian sector and public service side. We wanted to make sure to remind you of our upcoming monthly live show, the Day Room, Host Jockeys After Dark. This is an unstructured live show that we discuss whatever comes to mind. We will stream live to our Facebook page, YouTube channel, and now Twitch. Our viewers are encouraged to participate via chat. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show with your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. We're listed on all the major platform services. And we'll see you next time. You've been listening to Hose Jockeys Unite. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and please tell your friends about us. And always remember, even truckies need love too.